Tiina, welcome to the Bodyshot performance page. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Thank you, Leanne. Great to be here.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. You're over in Finland. What's it like over there at the moment?
Well, it's sunny and beautiful, but we still have about half a meter of snow on the ground here. It was a very heavy winter, and last night it still got to about -8
Ooh.
Celsius. So it was a cold night, and it will warm up to maybe +7 during the day, but it's going to be a few weeks before we have any kind of spring here.
Well, likewise. So we're on 8 degrees, half a meter of rain, and it's going to be quite a while before spring warms up over here as well.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit. It's been a long old haul this winter, but hey, there you go. So let's, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm an exercise physiologist and I work at Firstbeat Technologies. I'm based in Jyväskylä, Finland, and my job at Firstbeat is I work a lot with corporate wellness, different kind of corporate wellness projects, and I also train our partners in wellness around the world in the use of different Firstbeat methods. So that's what I do. And Firstbeat is based here in Finland, but we do work in the UK quite a bit, and that's why I got to know Leanne a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah, cool. So we're both wearing a Firstbeat. So, I mean, why don't we just talk to start with about what these things are? Because we've shown them now, we've revealed ourselves, we're wired. What is the Bodyguard assist? Or what does Firstbeat do? And what is this device that we're both wearing?
Yeah, so the Bodyguard device that we have on, it's what we would call a professional wearable. It's a device that you attach it on your body and you typically wear it for 3 days and 3 nights, just as part of your normal daily life, all day and all night. It ticks away underneath your clothes, and then you do your normal daily routines, and it measures your heart rate variability. So it detects every beat of your heart and the time between beats, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But the idea of the measurement is then when it's analyzed, we get information about how we are handling the daily stress that we have, how we are sleeping, what kind of recovery we are getting during the day, and also physical activity and exercise is a crucial part of the assessment. And the idea is to provide just normal working people tips and insights and ideas about lifestyle and how behaviors and things they can do can improve their well-being significantly.
Okay, so I've worn this before and I got some really interesting data out of it. The key thing for me was just how much recovery am I getting during the day and night, more importantly. And I think that's what is missing from people, from busy professionals' awareness now is of the importance of recovery and just how much are they getting. But let's come back to the Bodyguard and the Firstbeat, if we may, and talk a bit about some of the problems that our target market, if you like, are facing. What are your observations?
Well, like you kind of said, that people they aren't aware of the need of recovery or sleep. So people live in a very hectic pace of life easily. They might not work any longer than they did 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, but the overall pace of life tends to be very fast, and we most of us have sort of a need or requirement to, or at least we think we have the requirement to be sort of available all the time. We have our phone, emails keep coming in there, we have tablets and laptops, and so we are connected, and the line between work and time off is a lot fuzzier than it was in the past, and this causes really easily the situation where we are on, our gas pedal is on all the time. We are on the go, needing to perform, and then we just forget the importance of recovery and rest and recuperation. So I think that's one area that we definitely see with the busy corporate sector particularly, but really across the board.
Yeah. And what do you think's caused that blurring of work and home life? Technology is an obvious thing, and there's an irony there, isn't there? Because we're wearing technology.
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely think the ability to be available all the time. I mean, even for someone like myself, I'm about 50 years old and I didn't grow up with devices, but still I have a phone that if I don't remember to turn it off or put it on silent, messages keep coming all the time, and then it's harder for people to say that, okay, I'm done with today's work and now it's time to leave it behind and do something else, but then they get a little beep maybe on the phone, or the technology, it's great, but it also it's tougher to put behind, and that's a challenge. And that obviously, like I know that you do a lot in your work, it really starts, for example, cutting into our sleep too. If the technology and the light and the sounds and all the activation that it causes, it cuts into our sleep then too.
Yeah. So to come back to that blurring of work and home life, I mean, it used to be called, and still is sometimes, a work-life balance, which I find a funny one, because what is that balance? I haven't met anyone yet that can say to me, yep, there it is. That's my work-life. That's it. It's more of a blend, isn't it? Particularly now, traditionally we'd have gone out and farmed fields or worked at factories, come home, and there was this clear separation between work and home life. And it's much less so now, partly because of technology, partly because of the changing nature of our work. What are the problems that, when you go and you talk to a corporate, what are some of the real problems that people are suffering from? I mean, for example, stress is a very big umbrella term, isn't it, for so many things? But what are some of the real, pain points that people are feeling?
Yeah, I think, one of the starting points with us and what we do is definitely we try to sort of demystify stress, that stress in itself, the way we use the term, is not a problem. It's normal and understandable that people have demands and requirements on their lives, and we have to perform and we have to be sort of on the top of our game, and it requires stress reactions, physiological stress reactions from the body so that we can sort of rise to the task and perform. But then the problem becomes when that becomes sort of an ongoing situation where we no longer know how to disengage from that situation. And then I would say that one of the pain points is clearly this, because it's harder to draw that line, what's work and what's not work, and when to call it off. So then we start sort of sacrificing our sleep, either by sleeping less, thinking that we can get by with less sleep, or maybe we still sleep the 7 hours, but we spend the first couple of hours where our body is still fully engaged. So we aren't really getting the quality of sleep that we need to really get that recovery that everyone needs. And I should maybe another point, I mean, if I had to pick top two things what I typically talk about, so clearly sleep is really a big one, but I really emphasize physical activity as well as a positive, what we can do. And it's great, all the research that's coming out that shows that even just small acts of physical activity, we don't have to find huge amount of time in a day to go to the gym and put in an hour workout every day. Any physical activity is found to have a lot of positive effects, not just on our fitness, but our ability to handle stress and our ability to sleep better too. So that's definitely another area that when you get busy, the exercise tends to be put in the sort of the back burner, waiting for a better time.
Yeah, and I think one of the key mistakes I see people making with that is thinking they need a big chunk of time to exercise. So a lot of what I talk about is, look, forget the myth that you need an hour. In the gym. You absolutely don't. You can have a very effective workout in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And one of the things I say to people is, if you've only got half an hour, do the workout. That's a really big chunk of time, but be very present for that 30 minutes. So quite often you'll see people in a gym for an hour and they kind of mooch around and chat to people and take a long time between sets. And okay, if part of going to the gym is socializing for you, and you like to sort of take it a little bit easier, then great. But if you only got 30 minutes, be really present. So this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it. I'm clear on my intent, and I'm there. I'm present during the exercise. I'm really focusing on what I want to get out of it. And you'll find you can have a very effective workout in a very short space of time. I mean, many people watching will have heard of the Tabata sequence. Tabata is a 4-minute exercise, 20 seconds very hard, 10 seconds rest. You cycle through that 8 times. That's 4 minutes. That's Tabata. If you're doing something like that and you're doing it fast, hard, with presence and intent, that can really get your heart rate up. So it doesn't need to be a long period of time for exercise. Yeah, and the other thing that, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to add to that especially in those shorter segments throughout the day, so 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there, it can add up to very positive health effects. I mean, and the studies back that up. So it's not just that you do feel more energized, but it actually starts to rack up some definite health benefits as well. Yeah.
Very annoyingly, I can't remember the source of where the specific source. I read it in Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans. And he said in there, and you're going to have to take this or leave this because I don't know the actual source, but the person that exercises for an hour before or after work, but is sedentary at work, is only 4% less sedentary than the person that does nothing at all day. So the body is not designed to do very high spike of activity and then sit at a desk all day. It's, to your point, it's 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, sort of up and down of gentle, low-level movement. That's the kind of the key to it. If you think about our ancestors, they were waking up, with a beautiful light coming into the cave, going out. They were maybe hunting, being hunted, foraging, scurrying, sharpening food by the fire, gathering firewood. They were moving on a kind of pretty constant low level. They were not going out, hunting something, coming back and sitting still all day. We were trying to move in an ancestral way. And one of the things that's been quite revelatory to me in my sort of 6-year journey of being, heavy drinking, 3.5 stone heavier, city swiller, to now is the concept of active transport. We've got behind just there, which you can't see on camera, is a kettlebell. So every hour I'll get up and do maybe 10 kettlebell squats. I appreciate that's not accessible to everybody. But what is accessible to everybody is just building in what we call active transport. Stairs, not the escalator, for example. Getting up and walking to a colleague to talk to them. Going a little bit further for lunch. Getting off the train to stop earlier and walking the rest of the way. All this kind of stuff is active transport. And it really matters. Those 5, 10, 15-minute little bursts of low-level exercise. Super important.
Yeah, it is important. And I think what's sort of really comforting for people too is that there's actual science behind that to show that any physical activity is better than no physical activity. And you can, by doing that active transport, for example, walking 15-20 minutes in the morning on your way to work and another 15-20 minutes on your way back home, it's not just that you are getting some steps, but you are getting some significant benefits from that. So it is a great way. And I certainly enjoy when I come to London. To me, it seems like I'm increasingly seeing people in their business suits, but with their trainers on. So when they get off the tube, they do walk maybe 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to their office and then probably change into their heels or their, their proper shoes. But it's nice to see that in traffic as well.
Yeah, you do see more and more of that. To come back to the pain points, I think one of the most underappreciated things is recovery. We've touched on it. I think people are overtraining, brackets overworking. So they're simply taking on more than is manageable over certainly over a sustainable period. But more importantly, really undervaluing recovery. So also understanding to the same point that physical exercise need only be 5, 10, 15 minutes here or there. Recovery doesn't need to be, we're not talking about taking half a day off a week to sit in a flotation tank or do nothing at all. We're just talking about taking micro breaks, aren't we, every hour? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. I think that really comes up a lot in corporate discussion, that people, they know that their days are going to be, for the most part, busy and filled with activity, and all kinds of people are really learning different strategies. It might be mindfulness or a meditative practice, or maybe a deep relaxation exercise or deep breathing just for 5 minutes. Maybe they'll close the office door and just make sure that they take that 5 minutes to sort of consciously teach themselves to bring down the activation level and calm down, let the heart rate slow down. And that's one of the things that the Firstbeat assessment, I think it concretizes that, because the graph that we have, if someone were to do that kind of a 5 or 10 minute break, and if they are actually able to calm down, they see this bar of green color in the report, and it's a strong sort of a positive reinforcement for them that, okay, that actually matters, that, that little break that I take maybe before a busy afternoon or something like that, it is helpful, and it helps sort of moderate that stress response that is going to be there regardless at times.
Yeah. So let's get into the Firstbeat report. I mean, as a user, and we work with, as a business, we work with this technology as well. I'm wearing this, so I've essentially got and if you can see that there's a kind of a sticker that goes onto the skin, and this plugs into it, and there's another one that goes just below your left breast, and you wear that. The two are connected. You wear it for 3 days, 3 nights, taking it off just to shower. Now, at the end of tomorrow morning, my 3 days will be done, and I'll then return it to you. You're going to generate a report for me. Tell me what the report includes.
Yeah, so obviously you can probably put an example of one of the graphs on your site afterwards, so it's sort of, you can see that visually, but the idea is to show 24-hour segments. So you're looking at a day and the following night that has colors that show what's happening. So there is always going to be red color, which means stress. In this context, it means the engagement or the activation level, sort of the drive or the gas of the body. And certainly you're going to have some red. Everyone should have some red because, like you said before, we don't expect people to just lay down on the couch and try to recover or recuperate all day. But then ideally you also start seeing a green color, which means that your nervous system is slowing down, your heart rate is slowing down, and you're able to get into that zone of recovery. It should happen particularly during sleep. If the system is in balance, your autonomic nervous system is functioning how it should, then we would expect the body to sort of naturally slow down during sleep. Unfortunately, this doesn't always happen when they get too busy and they have too many demands on them all day, and maybe they're going at that sort of maximum speed until the moment when they put their head on the pillow and start to sleep. Sometimes their body just keeps going. They might be asleep, but the quality is very poor. The heart is still working hard. And then exercise, the report will graphically show if you did do those 15-minute walks to the tube or whatever you integrated into the day. So then in between the red so-called mental stress segments, you will have some blue bars that will show that you built in some nice physical activity. And it will show your steps as well. So different insights and different views into the lifestyle, and then you keep a journal while you're doing that. So for example, you today, if you mark in your journal that a live interview, you can see on the report that what was the response that happened during the live interview. It's probably not very stressful for you because you're very used to this, whereas for me, I haven't done a live Facebook chat like this before, so I'm guessing I'm going to have a good healthy stress response during this meeting, and then maybe I'm getting into some kind of recovery afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, what kind of things do you do for recovery? How do you create that? We were just talking about the work-life balance not being there, but how do you create that nice blend of recovery and positive stress, eustress?
Yeah. I'm not very good at actually building it into my typical office day. I'm guilty of just sort of trying to get everything done before I leave the day. So I'm not the greatest example with that. But then when I travel, I really try, for example, when I'm sitting on a train or airplane, I try to very consciously not be on my laptop the whole time, but I'll get through my emails. And I typically have a 3-hour train ride from my city to Helsinki when I have some business there. So then I'll take a conscious time when I put all the electronics away and sometimes take a nap. Sometimes I just close my eyes and sort of daydream or be mindful in that moment. Maybe I look outside at the lakes and the forests, what we have here. So just letting my mind be in a peaceful place. I do also, when the workday is over, I try to take a sort of a break at home where I don't just get busy doing things, but try to take some kind of a conscious time of it. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it might be like a mindless TV program, sometimes it's reading, but something where I'm just doing that one thing and not multitasking and staying busy.
Yeah, we talk about the principle of heartfulness, which is really doing things that you enjoy. It's bringing people back to stuff they used to do as a child, maybe, or they used to have the time and the passion for. And the kind of convergent pressures of work and home have just squeezed out the bandwidth they've got to do those things. So for me, I very recently got back into reading. Always loved reading, voracious reader. And I found that I was just doing 15, 20 minutes reading at the end of the day. So now after dinner, I'll take an hour to read. Then I'll maybe watch something for an hour with my partner on TV, and then we'll go to bed. So I'm actually getting into bed at the same time, but I'm reading for 3 times the amount, 4 times the amount I would have been. But that makes me feel much better about things. Walking, spending time in nature, doing things for other people is what we consider to be heartfulness. And that has very good proven benefits for well-being, measured in terms of subjective feelings of happiness and well-being, but also in terms of HRV. And HRV is heart rate variability. People who are familiar with that concept will have heard this before. And essentially heart rate variability, stop me if I'm wrong, is the interbeat interval. So the time between heartbeats. And a healthy heart has an irregular, it's indiscernible unless you're wearing technology, indiscernible, but it's an irregular pattern of heartbeats is a sign of health, and a more regular is a sign of perhaps chronic stress. And they were able to measure the effects of HRV on things like gratitude and general feeling of well-being. And I think HRV, I wanted to talk about that a little bit as well, because that's a really interesting measurement, isn't it? And I know that Firstbeat's looking at HRV, and there's other ways that it can be measured. That's one thing that I keep a really close eye on. So at the start of the year, when I outlined 5 goals for myself, one of them was to have an HRV of 120 and above. Now, I mean, the number, my partner is of similar age, similar fitness, and yet her HRV is maybe half that, or just over half that. So the number is very subjective. It's not a comparison, or mine should be higher than because I'm younger, or so just put that out there for anyone listening. You know, but that's the number I set for myself, and typically I average around it. Now, part of that goal, though, is not to always be 120 and up, because I should be putting my body under stress so that the HRV drops, and then my goal is to get it back up to 120. And the reason I picked that as a goal is, instead of saying, right, you've got a sleep-related goal, a meditation-related goal, a walking-related goal, I just have a heart rate variability-related goal, because I know to get my HRV back up to 120, I'm going to need to sleep well. I'm going to need to build in adequate recovery. I'm going to need to build in the right type and intensity of exercise. I need to meditate every day, and so on. So it just makes it really simple for me. Do you track your HRV?
I don't, not in a day-to-day kind of way. And it is really good to keep in mind that genetics affects approximately 30% of your sort of natural heart rate variability level. So whether it's 25 milliseconds or 60 milliseconds or 120 milliseconds, about 30% comes from genetics. And that's obviously we cannot change that. So it's important to keep in mind that we can't set some kind of generic guidelines for everyone to follow. And also that to do that kind of regular monitoring, you do need to definitely establish your own baseline and sort of normal patterns. But I think it can be a great tool, like you said, when you do learn from that. A comparison between different devices is tricky too, and I don't want to get into a device kind of discussion in this short chat, but different devices do a good job measuring that. But then if you start comparing the results between different devices, that there might be big differences. But if you systematically use a device that works for you, then you can definitely learn those kind of things. And also one way to focus is not look at a specific millisecond value, but to see if it responds meaningfully. So if we have a busy day when we are out doing things, doesn't really matter what your heart rate variability is in that situation, because when we have stress, then it's natural that, like when you mentioned the variation, and then when there is stress, then the heart beats kind of like a metronome, then it beats at very even intervals. And that's normal in a stress situation. But if the balance is there and you're able to cope with the stress that you have, then when you have that opportunity to relax, when you do a meditation or you lie down and do some deep breathing, then you should be able to quite quickly bring that heart rate variability up. And that means that that part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, it's kicking in and becoming active. And then that's what the healthy heart should do. It should be able to respond to the behaviors that we do.
I remember you mentioned when I saw you speak in London a few weeks ago, you don't actually wear a piece of wearable technology all the time, do you?
Yeah, like right now I'm not I'm not wearing anything.
Yeah,
I do test different wearables quite often, and it's interesting, but I personally believe that, well, I think people are different. For some people, if they have a device that constantly tells them what's happening, it can actually increase, they can become a little bit neurotic and almost become more stressed from that, because maybe they are feeling just fine, but the device is telling them that, okay, you are too stressed, or, this is not good, or something like that. And then you start sort of paying too much attention to that. Whereas I think other people get great benefit from data. No question we can learn from that, as long as we can, I think, as long as you draw the line and sort of keep the common sense, which is probably at least as important as as the data that we can get. Like if I wake up in the morning and I feel like I've had a good restorative sleep and I've done right things the night before, I've been mindful and I haven't been out drinking and I haven't done anything really stressful or disturbing in the evening, and I wake up feeling refreshed, sometimes I might be better off not even seeing what the device tells me, because if it tells me that you didn't sleep well, then it's kind of like, okay, which should I believe, how I feel or what the data tells? So it's kind of like with everything else, there's a balance and we have to learn what works for us.
And once I take this off tomorrow morning, I'm actually going to do a week or two completely free of wearable tech. I do normally have something on permanently. And the main reason for that is I think it's just important to tune back into how you feel and not to over rely on technology. And just get used to the feelings of waking up, thinking, okay, how do I feel? Do I feel rested? What have I got on today? Would it be good for me to build in some more micro breaks? Because actually that wasn't a restful sleep. Or am I feeling really good? Is today a good day to go and get more done, go a little bit further, put in a bit more exercise? So just really being able to adapt based on how you feel and knowing what the feelings are and what your body's telling you. There are some signals like heart rate variability, body temperature, resting heart rate that we can't tune into. You need technology for that. But fundamentally, we can tune into how we feel. And I think that's probably the main point about this recovery discussion, isn't it? It's understanding, how am I feeling at the moment? Have I built enough recovery in? You can use technology to help, you can use testing to help you, but it would be really great, I think, if our audience was able to tune into their bodies a little bit more and understand what they need and try stuff as well. Try meditation. Does that work for you? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're actually doing a form of meditation, i.e. walking, painting, sculpting, whatever it might be. It's just not sitting there like this, but it is meditative. Therefore, you get the benefits of meditation via that activity.
For sure.
We've got just a few minutes left, and I'd really like to talk to you about, let's say somebody who represents a corporate, works in HR from a corporate, is watching. What is it that Firstbeat can do for a corporate?
So we can do a corporate wellness project where it can be the management team, or it can be all of the employees, or it can be the top end employees, people who travel a lot. We can do this kind of a 3-day assessment, what we talked about, where we do a sort of a kickoff lecture and tell what this is all about. Then everyone wears the device for 3 days and 3 nights, and then they get a feedback session with the professionals. It can be done in a group setting, or it can be done individually with each person, with the idea of identifying with each individual what are maybe their stress points and what are their ways to recover, and just sort of reinforce the common sense principles that they might already be aware of. And then typically in that kind of a corporate project, people set some goals and they write down what they learned, what are their goals, and then they would follow that up perhaps 6 months later, sometimes 3 months later, sometimes maybe even a year later. So it's not something that if they have wearable products, they can continue with that, but this is sort of a 3-day window into their life at a specific time point, and then they do some goals and then maybe check to see how that's working for them. So that type of raising of awareness of things that we might not be aware of. And one example I could bring from what you said before, data, I absolutely believe also that data can definitely bring some information that we don't know in our head. So typical discoveries, what people get from this type of a measurement is, for example, the effect that alcohol or intensive exercise in the evening have on the following night's recovery. If we have drinks, more than one drink, it's absolutely systematic in our database that will have a detrimental or a not a positive effect on the following night's sleep. And people are often surprised to find that out. They think that, well, I thought a few drinks actually relaxes me, and it might sort of relax you, but it definitely doesn't improve your sleep quality. And it's something that people don't need to stop drinking, but it's good for them to be aware that when they drink, they are not going to get their optimal recovery the following night. And the same with exercise. If you have a long, stressful day, and then you think that I'm going to go and unwind that stress by going on a really intensive 1-hour run, that's actually going to have a negative effect on your recovery acutely. And again, that's something that you need to just build into your week.
Yes, and that actually is another thing. Another mistake I see people making is super busy, super stressed, still going out and smashing those high intensity workouts in the gym when that is not the right type of exercise necessarily for what you're doing. But so much more we could talk about, but I'm really mindful of your time. Just on the subject of sleep and the effect that alcohol can have on it and everything related to sleep, I'm halfway through a really good book by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. It's had a huge amount of publicity. It's worth it. It breaks down quite complicated stuff into simple concepts backed up with science, which isn't blindingly scientific. You know, it's very fact-based. So it's a really good book. I'll put a link to it in the notes for this recording. I'm also going to link to my report, and I'm going to do a separate recording to go through my report once I get the results.
Great.
And if there's you mentioned a graph that would be good for us to put up. Showing the kind of the green and the red. So I'll get a screenshot of my previous report last year and put that up as well, along with links as to how people can contact me if they're interested in going through the Firstbeat bodyguard assessment. Is there anything you want to add, Tiina?
No, I just wanted to remind that you are going to be doing a webinar for Firstbeat also in May, specifically focusing on sleep. So we should have the ad out for that on the Firstbeat website. If it's not out yet, it should be out this week, so that Leanne's going to be spending 30 minutes talking about sleep and the importance of sleep. So I think that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it will be. And I'll put we'll obviously be promoting that as well across our social media channels. So, okay, cool. If anyone's got questions, let me have a look. Have we got any live comments? I suspect, no, we haven't. We've had a couple of people watching. So what normally happens with this is everyone catches up later on in the evening and later.
Okay.
So if we've got questions in there for you, I'll email you, Tiina. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Nice to be here. See you next time.
See you.
Bye-bye.